Now, continuing with our election coverage, I'm joined in the studio now by Conor who is standing for the Anti-Austerity Alliance. Good morning, Conor. How are you?
Morning, John. I'm grand.
Have you recovered from last Friday? Emer told me all those physical jerks, they took a lot out of people.
They did indeed, yes. I left with muscle aches all right for quite a while.
You're a much improved person, no doubt. Well,
yes.
we must say thank you for partaking, because it was great spirit and people were very appreciative of the people who did come along and take part. Conor, I have to put it to you, we keep on hearing of jobs figures up, employment up, people on the dole down. Austerity worked?
No, it didn't. In fact, what has brought about a change, and I wouldn't call it a recovery except for the rich in reality, is the orientation towards foreign direct investment. In fact, the growth figures are generally overstated. Patrick Honan has warned against the use of the 7% figure, that it's really not a correct measure of what's happened in the economy. But the reality of it is that people know themselves is that people are worse off. Wages are down on average by €2,000 for an average worker. So we have a fall in the headline rate of unemployment, but we still have a huge broad rate of unemployment at 19%. And that includes, of course, people who are underemployed. So we have a proliferation of part-time work and badly paid work.
But we were broke. Was there any alternative other than to cut things back? And is your main unhappiness with the manner in which the cuts were imposed?
Well, of course there were alternatives. There were choices that were made. The wrong choices were made. The Irish people were sacrificed, if you like, to pay back 42% of the European banking debt, and that shouldn't have happened. Despite claims by the Taoiseach that he would stand up when he came in, and Leo Varadkar in Not Another Red Cent, etc., Eamon Gilmore's Frankfurt's Way or Labour's Way, it turned out to be, the resistance, if you like, turned out to be a damn squib, and they just rolled over and made Irish people, working people in particular, the unemployed, and so on, old age pensioners, youth, pay for the crisis that was not of their making. And it's been going on since. The recovery is not benefiting ordinary people. Austerity is due to go on for generations. In actual fact, we're going to have the next generation worse off than the current generation for, the first time in living memory.
And I take your point that they talked tough but didn't act tough, but then the Greeks talked tough and acted tough, and the banks were closed.
Yeah, I mean, it's regrettable that Syriza caved in under massive duress, but the lesson to take from that is the nature of the EU in terrorising effectively the Greek population. And I mean, it's actually almost laughable from the point of view to hear Fine Gael and so on try to blame Syriza for what's happened in Greece when they were barely in office 5 months, yet Fine Gael is still blaming Fianna Fáil 5 years after they've left office, for the state of things here in Ireland.
Is it your case that it doesn't matter if it's Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael or Labour or any of the established parties, austerity is here to stay unless someone like you opposes it?
Absolutely. I mean, under duress, the austerity treaty was passed through, euphemistically called the Growth and Stability Pact. But effectively, if we stay within the EU rules, we are going to be paying off debt, and we're going to be restricting our public expenditure and so on, according to those rules, which benefits a transfer of wealth from the poorest to the richest in society. That is something that is undisputable, I think, particularly if on a global scale and on an Irish scale, where the wealth inequality has increased dramatically in the last number of years. Like
many people your age, I think I'm right, do you have 2 children, 2 sons, who would be...
a son and a daughter.
Son and daughter, and they're in around 20?
20s, yeah.
What do you think about the country they are going into their final stage of education and work life in?
Well, it was interesting, the questions that were put down in the Carlow IT debate that was hosted by the Students' Union there, and unfortunately I wasn't able to go because I actually have to hold down work. But the kind of questions that were put down were about 0-hour contracts, about the cost of living for students, in particular accommodation, about a living wage and so on. Jobs bridge was another question. All of these things are a continuation of austerity and the policy of making ordinary people pay. So really, I mean, the kind of policies we are putting forward are based on the needs of people. We're arguing for a €12 an hour minimum wage and quickly moving to €14 an hour. There's a movement in America, and there are movements on the continent to bring up the wages, because basically there's been an ongoing campaign, a war against ordinary people, in breaking down union power and the resultant low pay, precarious work and so on that exists because of that.
When you say breaking down union power, and the people might support that in all sorts of ways, but do you feel a little bit shocked when the Lewis is stopped day after day now by people who are looking for a massive increase? I mean, does 65,000 to drive a tram seem like working class behaviour?
Yes, I think I'm not actually that familiar with the particular details, but I'm quite sure that they're overspun by the employers, and that they're making their profits out of it. And
they're not making profits. Sorry, you and I, the taxpayers, helps the company break even. The company makes a loss. But it's providing a public service, and that's fair.
No, I doubt that. I doubt that they're making a loss. But look, if people didn't stand up and fight and organise themselves into unions, we would be far worse off. And there has to be a return to members becoming active in their unions and standing together. And I would just say that we see in SOS there just yesterday, workers taking action. They have to be supported. You know, if they don't get the support from the community, then the wages will be driven down further.
Now, we talked about water when we were with you last week, so maybe we leave that for just a moment. But health, and for all sorts of reasons, including sad personal ones, is very big in your agenda.
Yeah, it's actually it would have been my wife Susie's 50th birthday today. So. Sorry. No, it's just.
I didn't know that one.
No, well, I mean, I have to reference her because I became active and stood as a candidate because of her activism. Yeah. And, you know, what we're about as the Anti-Austerity Alliance is about activism in politics. And I see that, you know, the reality is, and Gary Courtney in St. Luke's has confirmed this to me, is that because of Susie's activism, they now have the 24-bed day unit. You know, which was missing for decades in reality, should have been there in the 80s, but wasn't implemented because of Fianna Fáil hair shirt budgets and the cutbacks to the hospitals. Then it's being ongoing. Public health is the Cinderella. The figures that are currently out there about us using. You know, being the highest cost health system in the world, bar America, is nonsense. When you look at the spending on public health as opposed to health overall, private health is making inroads into public health. Both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have tried to privatise, hive off sections of the health service. There is a subsidy from the public to the private health sector, and that has to stop. We need a single tier system which is based on people's needs, their medical needs, not on their ability to pay.
Conor McLean, the Anti-Austerity Alliance, who is standing for election on Friday, and thank you for talking to us on KCLR Live. And I'm just thinking, because I was totally unaware that it was I never met your wife, that it was her 50th birthday. So it's a nice legacy to look at.
It is, but the one thing Susie would have pointed out as well is that there's so much more to fight for. We need a hospice in the southeast. We don't have a hospice. Phase 2 development. You know, I mean, the problems with the implementation of the opening of the A&E in St. Luke's. All this has to be pushed for, and it has to be fought for. We can't expect that the austerity parties, the establishment parties, are going to hand it to us on a plate. We have to fight back, and I'd urge people to boycott the water charges and to vote for me, number one, to send a message to the government that we are fighting back.
Thank you very much, Conor McLean, the Anti-Austerity Alliance. As we say to all our candidates at the end of a very tough campaign, the best of luck, because we need the best people out there, because what they do is they represent us, and that is what we want.